Hey, but the part two is the outrage at large in the whole country. So the right wing keeps saying we're number one. Number one at what? Not in healthcare. We're literally number 37.
Not in education.
We pay twice as much as countries like Canada and Japan. We have worse results. We literally lead shorter lives. We have the worst maternal death rate during birth of any developed nation, as Anna just told you. So where's the number one part? And on top of all that, we are in a constant terror dome of, are we going to get sick? Are we going to be able to afford it if we get sick? If we get into an accident, can I afford it, or should I just take a chance to die instead? That's insanity. And all this for what? Because we want to pay less? No, we pay more. We pay more. It makes no sense at all. So who makes all the money? The middlemen. And they're not government bureaucrats. The right wing has lied to you your whole life. And unfortunately, a lot of the media aids and abets them. No, it is the corporate bureaucrats. It's the middlemen of healthcare insurance and all the marketing costs they have, etc. That is totally unnecessary. They double the cost, put it in their pocket, and you're stuck under a train wondering if you're going to live or not.
Well, I feel like the arguments in favor of a Medicare for all system or universal health care, those arguments fall short. And a perfect example of that is the next story that we're about to do. So let's get right to it. A Koch-backed organization commissioned a study to try to prove that a Medicare for all system here in the United States, a proposal that Bernie Sanders has championed, would be a complete and utter disaster when it comes to our economy, and that it would just simply cost too much. The only problem is the findings of the study actually indicate that the United States would save a lot more money if we had a Medicare for all system. In fact, we would save about $2 trillion over 10 years if we shifted from the current system we have now to a Medicare for all system. So Bernie Sanders responded to this, and before I get into all the numbers, the specifics of the study, this will give you an idea of how complimentary this is toward Bernie's proposal. Take a look.
Let me thank the Koch brothers of all people for sponsoring a study that shows that Medicare for all would save the American people $2 trillion over a 10-year period. A Medicare for all healthcare system would save the average family significant sums of money. It will do that by substantially reducing the administrative costs now taking place as a result of the billing, bureaucracy, and insatiable greed within the insurance industry. Here is the bottom line. If every major country on earth can guarantee health care for all and achieve better health care outcomes while spending substantially less per capita than we do, please do not tell me that the United States of America cannot do the same.
So, I want to give context here. Every study that has looked at Medicare for all has shown that it saves money, doesn't cost money. So every time you see both bad actors and good willing people with good intent ask ask the question of, but is it practical? Understand that the question is completely wrong. It's like saying, well, you got a great steak, but it costs less. Is that practical? Yeah, by definition, it's practical. It costs less, right? It makes no sense. And look, even Trevor Noah on The Daily Show. Why? Because the groupthink of New York and Washington is all progressive programs are not pragmatic or practical. They cost more money. When in reality, it's the tax cuts and the wars that cost trillions of dollars. So now there's different ranges for how much Medicare for All saves us for the entirety of healthcare in the country. One study has it at $17 trillion. Okay. Now, the most common one is the one that's $2 trillion, the one that Bernie referenced. The one that the Koch brothers did, they're like, oh, Medicare for all. That looks out for average Americans and not billionaires? No, this costs so much money. And they meant to do that great damage. So they're like, do you know how much you have to raise in taxes? It costs $32.6 trillion. And then experts pointed out, the current system costs $33 trillion. This is over a decade. Both of them are over a decade. So you would actually, even under the Koch study, under the worst case scenario, we would still save $400 billion. Like,
at least $400 billion.
That's kind of uncomfortable. Yes, I think the $2 trillion number is the one that most of the studies are landing on, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's a fair one to use. But it ranges from $400 billion to $17 trillion. The savings, not the extra money. Right. What we save for a better system that covers all of us.
Because look, this is the thing. I think the $2 trillion figure underestimates the savings as well. And I'll give you the exact reason why I think that. So look at how healthcare is handled in Cuba. Now, I'm not saying that Cuba's perfect. However, Cuba doesn't have the resources to effectively treat people who have illnesses that have progressed, right? So as a result, Cuba has the best preventative health care of any country. I mean, it's incredible. Like, doctors go door to door and ensure that people are getting the preventative health care necessary to ensure that they don't get sick to the point where they can't help them. Now, with that said, if you have a Medicare for All system, what are people likely going to do? They're going to go to the doctor for preventative health care. People don't go to the doctor for preventative health care because they got to deal with, the copay. They got to deal with deductibles. If, the doctor discovers that there's something wrong with them, they need treatment for something. I mean, people are afraid to go to the doctor and get their annual checkups in the country. So if we had a system where that fear ceases to exist, I think people are going to go to the doctor and make sure that they're getting the health care they need so they don't get so sick to the point where they're being sent to emergency rooms and things like that.
So now, I know the right was, you guys want us to be like Cuba? No,
I don't.
No, the whole point is that even in a country where so many things have gone wrong, that is really, really poor, and that is in otherwise disastrous shape like Cuba, even their healthcare is better than our healthcare. I mean, that is mind-blowing. Because almost everyone's healthcare is better than our healthcare. And for what? And you think, well, Jay, Anna, you guys can't be right. How could we save money, and it covers everyone, and it's better healthcare, and it gets better results all across the world? Something's not adding up here. So what's the catch? Well, the catch is our system is more corrupt than other systems. We allow for legalized bribery of our politicians. So what do all the healthcare companies do? Most of all, insurance companies, because they would literally go out of business. So they spend tens of millions, overall up to billions of dollars when you combine the whole healthcare industry, to just literally bribing politicians. Now, it's legal in this country, and I know if you don't live in America, that seems amazing. No, you can't just give money to politicians. Yes, in our country, you can just give millions of dollars to politicians, and that's not called a bribe. That's called a campaign contribution or an independent expenditure. So they bribe all of our politicians to maintain their profit at our expense, sometimes at the expense of our lives.
Yes, and that includes pharmaceutical drugs that cost way more here in the United States compared to other countries like Canada. And also, look, and people get on me when I mention this, but it's the truth. It's happening left and right. We all know it, right? The system that we currently have also leaves a lot of room for abuse. So, to give you an example, a family member got an MRI. and then we got billed because we didn't realize that this doctor wasn't in network for $12,000. $12,000 for an MRI? Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Total nonsense. It's highway robbery. Look, I'll give you the last example here. And this Medicare for All debate is settled. If you actually care about policy, you care about the average American, there is now no debate left. It costs less. It covers everyone. You know that 15.5% of the country is totally uncovered. If they get sick, they're screwed. They either die or they go bankrupt, or both. They die and their family goes bankrupt. It's madness. It's the terror dome we live in. Okay. Now, in terms of the example I was going to give you, the drug companies, which are the number one donors to politicians in America, even more than the oil companies, more than the banks, they drive more corruption than everything else. They made Bush, Obama, and Trump, all of them, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to let them get away with it. Obama even did an ad about it. So did Donald Trump. They get into office. They're like, oh, right, you guys bribed me more than anyone else does. So just kidding. So what's the law that they all agreed to? The United States government cannot negotiate drug prices with drug companies. This is supposed to be capitalism? If you're a conservative, you should be disgusted by that. And you were so disgusted you voted for Trump because he said he was going to get rid of it. And guess what? He didn't. Because just like everyone else, he's totally corrupt. And he said, the drug companies give money to Republicans? Then forget it. Let them rob us blind. We're not even allowed to negotiate. You just charge us whatever the hell you like. That's why Americans pay so much more for their drugs than any other country. Because they bribed our politicians. The corruption is record-breaking. And the corruption will actually have decent policy in the country. And Medicare for All is a no-brainer. And by the way, it also polls over 60%. So this is, look, my anger is bipartisan. The Republicans are 99.8% corrupt at the federal level. None of them serve you. If you're under that delusion, you're just not accurate. It's just not true. They're the party built on donor money. Okay. Now, why is bipartisan? Yes, maybe 20% of Democrats are not hooked on the donor money. That sounds like a high number.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Now it's growing because of Justice Democrats and Bernie Sanders, etc. Now people are saying they're not going to take corporate PAC money. So at least there's a little base within the Democratic Party that is not corrupt. So thank God, finally, after all these years. But overall, look at Obama. He did the same goddamn thing. They even killed the public option. They did the Heritage Foundation plan and put a pretty face on it and said, voila, we fixed your health care. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. And the Democrats play along with the same exact donors, and they've also agreed to this system where we all get crushed. I'm sick of it. And by the way, the Democratic Party fights to keep money in politics harder than the Republican Party does. I know that because I founded Wolfpack at the state level. No one fights harder for the corruption than the Democratic Party does. Nancy Pelosi, so-called progressive groups like Common Cause, and all those Washington groups, they're like, do not do change. Don't do a convention. That would actually bring change. That might give us amendments. No, we maintain the corrupt system. That's what the Democratic establishment is. That's what the Republican establishment is. So politically, we have to steamroll them. We have to do whatever we can to crush them and move on. Politically, we fight legally, we fight politically, we fight constitutionally, and we're going to win if we. You know why? Because literally, it's a matter of life and death. We know what the right policy is, and last thing, Democrats, you go Medicare for all. It's a no-brainer, and it's supposed to be a progressive position. The overwhelming majority of Democrats are still like, oh, that's impractical. That's a Republican talking point. Why are you saying that? It's because you're corrupt. You take donor money. Anyone who's not for Medicare for all, who's a Democrat, flat out corrupt. Period. So just so you know, Republicans, at least they're honest. They go, relatively speaking, they go, we're for the rich. We're going to do another round of tax cuts for the rich and only for the rich. It's capital gains cuts. For the big drug companies, of course we're in their pocket. We're the corrupt party. The Democrats lied to you. The establishment Democrats say, no, I'm on your side, right? Oh, Medicare for all. I'm not going to help the Republicans crush that. And I'm going to use the same talking points. Dianne Feinstein going around saying it's a complete takeover of health care. No, it's not. saying over healthcare insurance, not the whole industry, not doctors, not hospitals. Why are you saying that? You know why? A week later, she went to a fundraiser thrown by the health insurance companies because she's fundamentally corrupt, systemically corrupt. End the corruption. Wolf-pack.com, or get involved in any way you can, because we got to end this.
This is weird to follow that epic rant, which was awesome, but I just wanted to do a quick correction of myself, because in the first story that we did in this segment, I misread something and said that the woman who was supposed to go to the doctor by the medics was listed as a transient. No, it was transient ischemic attack, which is essentially a stroke. So I didn't know that medical terminology. I apologize for that. We got to take a break.
All right, when we come back, I do have very, very good news for you guys, which is that now an actual civil war has started within the Republican Party. Not the fake ones that MSNBC celebrates that actually helps them. This one is actually going to hurt them. So I will explain when we come back. You know what's interesting about the Young Turks is that people do associate wrongly that the Young Turks has something to do with Turkey or Turkish people. It has nothing to do with Turkey or Turkish people. It happens, though, that there's a guy who's a Turkish guy who is involved in starting the Young Turks, and so I have a lot of trouble making that point to people. I know. What are you talking about? Jake Jr. I say, yeah, that's not the point. It's the rebels. They're rebels. I know. There's an argument to be made that we shouldn't have gone in that direction. But I remember me, Ben, and Dave sitting at Tony Roma's and talking it through, and I think the absurd point that won the day back then was, well, I already had this website, and I already kind of had a little bit of a show called The Young Turk, and then so maybe that was a brand. Looking back on it, no one knew that. Like 3.5 people knew that. Of course, picked a different name. I love that. It was cool, and it made sense. It was Young Rebels, and we hated the system, and we wanted to overthrow it. But then, but we knew that, they could get confused when it was a Turkish show. We knew that particular downside. Other downsides we should have known but didn't know. But what won the day was that, there's already a website. That's hilarious.
Clippers fans, I'm sorry I have to do this to you, but picture this. From North Carolina, at guard 6'6" for your Los Angeles Clippers, Michael Jordan. Oh, what could have been. The Bulls thought about it long and hard. They were almost sure the deal could get them to a title faster than staying with Jordan, but in the end, Reinsdorf held firm thing. It took 2 more years, but the Bulls got past the Pistons behind Michael Jordan bulking up. Doug Collins fired for some assistant coach named Phil Jackson. Jack was promoted. The Sox stayed in the city. The Bulls won 6 in 8 years. The White Sox won the World Series. Jerry Reinsdorf beloved and adored in the city. And the rest, my friends, is history.
This isn't Anderson Cooper. If you say some BS, I'm not simply going to let it slide and then move on to the next thing.
establishment Democrats in the country.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has defeated Joe Crowley.
Down goes Crowley! Down goes Crowley!
I am Jeff
Gowdy. I'm an editor with TYT. I mainly work on Facebook videos, but I also do stuff for Flick. I've been doing clips for the Damage Report as well, John's new show. If I had the possibility to shoot and host and edit my own show, I would probably have to do something cooking. Go around Los Angeles and find the best chilaquiles. Find the best Mediterranean food. Where can I get the best gyro? I think I consider myself a little bit of an expert in the subject.
All right, back on the Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Let me read two tweets first. Melly Bitch writes in, my mom passed away in 2010. I don't think it would have helped, but I didn't call 911 at first because I knew she would be upset about a large bill.
Oh my God.
I knew she couldn't afford. It probably wouldn't have helped, but now I'll always wonder. And went on to say in another tweet, I'll fight to the death for Medicare for all because no one should feel the way that I do. My mom was my best friend, and I still miss her every day. We live in a brutal country, man. I mean, I did a little ode to America in the beginning, but that's the idea of America. We must fix it. We must fix it. Okay, so whatever it is, Justice Democrats, Wolfpack, get involved. I swear to God, we can make a difference. Look at what happened with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And by the way, happy to announce she will be on the power panel on Friday. So she's going to be here. She's going to do the first hour with us. We can make change happen. We've done it together before. Let's do it again, okay? By the way, another so-called progressive group, Emily's List, now put in $634,000 to defeat Brent Welver.
Are you serious?
Because he's too liberal for Kansas. They're bragging about how the person they're supporting was a fellow in the Obama White House. The part they left out was she was also a fellow in the Trump White House. And she stayed in the Trump White House and did not leave. They're spending $634,000 to defeat a progressive in Kansas so that someone who served in the Trump White House can get that seat.
Insane.
By the way, they got a new website, winwithwelder.com. Go to winwithwelder.com, go to tytkansas.com, go to whatever you want, but make sure you help Brent win. If those fake progressives take that seat by just buying it like that, they'll drive me crazy. It's going to be a crime if that happens. All right. Anyway, look, I'll do a fun tweet for you guys. Six Green Puppet says, I prefer countries that weren't captured by corporate insurance interests, and we all do. Go to the YouTube Super Chat. Chip Walter says, always take the ambulance. If you have no insurance money, it will trigger the hospital to seek to put you on Medicaid, which might help you, right? Julie Risto and Kamali Rose corrected us on the transient ischemic attack, but thank you guys. Anna did correct that in the last segment. Hugh Edwards says, Jesus was homeless. True. Last two YouTube super chats here. Drew Wilson says, miss watching your show. It's tough being a progressive in the military. We actually have a lot of people who watch us in the military. Spread the word. Spread the word in the military, too. You'd be surprised how many people agree with us, especially once they start watching the show. And then the last one is G-Love says, Cenk and Anna hit. Did you know that Cuba has lung cancer vaccine? It's true. Look it up. And I agree with you, too, on Clinton and Obama. All right, well, thank you guys. We appreciate all that. All right, what's the next story, Anna?
All right. The Koch brothers have made it abundantly clear that they will no longer support members of the GOP who they feel are not living up to the Koch brothers' expectations. Now, these are Republicans. They have been supportive of the very tax cuts that the Koch brothers and their supporters have been calling for. But apparently there are other issues that these donors are looking for these Republicans to take care of, including tariffs. They hate the fact that Donald Trump has engaged in this trade war. So as a result, during their Colorado Springs get-together, which they do every year, here's what they had to say. They're saying that Representative Kevin Cramer from North Dakota doesn't do enough to further the Koch's policy issues to warrant their health. Okay, so to give you some more details on that, apparently this network is also currently not supporting Senate candidates in 2 other key states, Indiana and Nevada. I'll get to them in just a second. But this has led to a feud between Donald Trump and the Koch brothers. Now, Trump has handled it the way he handles every other feud. He's gone after them on Twitter. But it's really fascinating because remember, corporations got a gigantic tax cut under Trump. Republicans in Congress overwhelmingly supported it, voted for it, but it's still not enough for the Koch brothers. It's still not enough for these donors. They want more.
So there's a lot of different parts of this story and angles. Who's right, Koch brothers or Donald Trump? Oh boy, right? Number 2, this is a fight within the Republican Party. Usually the kind of thing that MSNBC celebrates and is irrelevant. But this one is not irrelevant. This one is very, very relevant, and it has potentially really positive ramifications. But the things that have been said are significant. Donald Trump called them a joke. Do you have those quotes?
I do. So let's go to graphic 22. Here are the 2 tweets in reference to the Koch brothers. The globalist Koch brothers, who have become a total joke in real Republican circles, are against strong borders and powerful trade. I never sought their support because I don't need their money or bad ideas. They love my tax and regulation cuts, judicial picks, and more. And he also says, I made them richer, which is true. Their network is highly overrated. I have beaten them at every turn. They want to protect their companies outside the U.S. from being taxed. I'm for America first and the American worker, a puppet for no one. 2 nice guys with bad ideas, make America great again. So, there's a lot to break down there because, while I actually agree with Trump on the whole issue of sending, their jobs abroad or not wanting to be taxed, offshore tax havens, like all of that stuff is true. The Koch brothers want to maintain those benefits. But Trump took advantage of that as well. Like, Trump is lying to the American people when he pretends as if he's not also benefiting from that. Ivanka Trump, up until just recently, was benefiting from that by, shipping jobs to other countries rather than manufacturing clothing for her line here in the United States.
So, first, let me do a breakdown of how different media handles this, right? Fox News looks at this. Who's right, Trump or the Koch brothers? They say both. Because that's their bread and butter. Those are guys they've supported their whole lives, right? So CNN looks at it and goes, I can't tell. He said, she said.
I'm not going to tell.
I can't tell, right? MSNBC looks at it and says, Koch brothers. Morning Joe loves the Koch brothers, fawns over them. Joe and Mika go to Koch brothers get-togethers and retreats and come back. And all the establishment people on MSNBC say Donald Trump is wrong and the Koch brothers are wonderful Americans. Okay, so I don't agree with any of that. So what's the TYT stance? First of all, they're both wrong. Okay, so that's no other network will tell you that. They pick sides or like CNN refuse to pick sides even though things are obvious, right? And then the second part is more important, which is, well, it depends. What conversation are we having? Why are we against Trump? Why are we against the Koch brothers? Based on substance. So the Koch brothers professionally bribe almost all the Republican Party. Sometimes some Democrats are corrupt enough they might bribe some Democrats as well. But overall, they're in the business of bribing Republicans. So they're wrong in the corruption that they do, and they say they do it for libertarian principles. Hilarious. No, every one of their positions lines up with their business interests. So on that, Trump is correct. They don't like the tariffs because they have companies that make things abroad, and they don't want that. They do want open borders when it comes to trade. By the way, the Koch brothers are right that the tariffs are not going to help the economy.
Right.
So it depends. What are we talking about? What are the facts, right? Overall, when you weigh all the different things that they're right and wrong about in this particular case, in this story, Trump is more right than the Koch brothers are.
Fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah, and by the way, I just want to add one more facet to the story that I think is important. Look, the reason why Trump is, boastful about this on Twitter and doesn't seem to be afraid of the loss of donor money, especially when, the blue wave is coming in the midterms, I think it's because the Republicans who refuse to speak out against the trade war understand that they have a political price to pay if they go against Trump. Because remember, Trump's base is still very loyal to them.
Yeah.
And so that's why they're choosing sides with Trump versus the Koch brothers. What's the point in bringing in Koch brother money or their campaign donations if voters are going to reject them for going after Trump.
So, look, I know what Trump is doing, and he's not really thinking it through because he's not bright enough, but it's in his nature, right? He's accumulating power in just one person, which is what fascists do. He doesn't like the distributed power of even the oligarchs like the Koch brothers having it. He says, no, I'm now in charge, like Bane in Batman, when he puts the hand on the business executive and goes, so you think you're in charge, right? So, and that's what he's doing. So I don't like that he's doing that. But are the Koch brothers part and parcel of the corruption in America? Absolutely. He's totally right about that. But I did not get excited by that. Why? Because Trump flip-flops all the time. And remember when he said, oh, NRA, they can intimidate other people, but not me. I'm going to get tough. And then 3 days later, they're like, hey, schmuck, you know how much they give you? And he goes, oh, never mind. We're not going to do anything that I said earlier. The NRA is awesome. I've killed all my proposals. In fact, I shot them. Okay? So I was waiting for him to do that with the Koch brothers because he doesn't know what he's doing. He tries to do the alpha male thing, and then the Koch brothers are like, do you know who you work for? And I thought 2 days later he'll flip-flop because he's Trump. That's what he does. But then, this is a really interesting development that just happened. Steve Bannon came out and said that the Koch brothers are, quote, a total scam, a Ponzi scheme, and then, this is even more important, not just random insults. He said, no one ever knows who their donors are. Now, that's true. It's not just the two Koch brothers. They bring some of the richest people in the country into their retreats at Palm Springs and other places. They do it a couple of times a year. And since a lot of it is dark money, we don't know who those incredibly rich people bribing our politicians are. So now, here comes the right wing going after them. Bannon says, we are going to find out who they are, referring to the donors. We're going to identify people who the Kochs back.
Ooh.
Okay, no, but that's real, man. Because, look, on the left, we're the only ones who would dare go after the donors.
This is so much fun.
And wait a minute, we are having fun.
Yeah.
Okay, because this is the first time I've ever seen the right wing be genuine. Because most of the time, 98% of the time, whether they're politicians or they're pundits or they're in the media, all they do is take donor money, billionaire money, and do whatever they tell them to do. They're all puppets. But this is not what a puppet does. I'm being fair, credit where credit is due. And the right wing's way more vicious. So when we target the donors, we're the only ones, right, on the left. Everybody else on the left is like, oh, not the donors, our beloved donors. The so-called progressive groups in Washington are totally in bed with the donors.
Damn.
But they're never going to touch them. But if the right wing turns on their own donors...
Oh, those donors are about to get kabombed.
Okay. So now that's a civil war that makes a difference. So what I can't stand this when MSNBC does this. And even their primetime shows, which I like from time to time, God, when they do this, it drives me crazy. When they're like, oh, do you know that the Freedom Caucus is pushing John Boehner or Paul Ryan, and they're having a fight within the Republican Party? Ha ha ha! No, you schmucks. That's pushing the Overton window to the right. It doesn't hurt them. It allows Paul Ryan to go, oh, what can I do? The House Freedom Caucus twisted my arm, and I just had to give the rich more tax cuts. That's a shell game. You don't celebrate that. This is a real war. With Koch brothers versus the right wing in the form of Bannon and Trump, unless Trump flip-flops, which could always happen, okay, and Bannon is not fully back in the fold, if he does not flip-flop and they actually go to war and the right wing starts exposing right-wing donors, then the battle is joined. As atrocious as they are, if you remember, Republican voters actually hate the corruption. And the Democratic voters hate the corruption. We're trying to fight against the establishment on both sides. I've never seen right-wingers be genuine, except Take Back Our Republic and a couple other groups that are really, really conservative, and I disagree with them on everything else. But there are a couple of people who are genuine in actually trying to get free and fair elections. But if they are joined by this big faction of the right wing that actually fights against the donors, game on.
Yeah, game on, and also we hopefully at some point will get back to a place where we are legitimately debating ideas.
That would be amazing.
Right, because look, I love the idea of debating ideas, but right now we're in this corrupt system where nothing is genuine. We can't even agree on the facts because everything is corrupted by the money. Look, I want to leave this story with Sam Nunberg's tweet because I think that it kind of summarizes this whole story perfectly. Graphic 24, he says, quote, the Koch brothers better check themselves before they wreck themselves.
Wow, so Nunberg's off the sauce and back on Trump. Okay.
I just thought that was a nice word of the use, nice use of the word cuck, and also check yourself.
Yes, well, it sounds like a cuckastrophe is on its way, but one that might actually help the American people. Last thing for me is, look, the fake progressives, the establishment Democrats, will look at this story and our coverage of it, and they will say, how dare you? How dare you agree with Steve Bannon on anything, or Donald Trump on anything? You're supposed to oppose them no matter what. We live in the black and white world, and the resistance means that, I mean, unless they're helping the rich, then we agree. But other than that, right, and there are donors too, that's fine, we agree with that. But other than that, you're supposed to blanket disagree with them. No, it depends. And so in this case, if they are genuine, and that's a giant if, and Bannon and Trump go after some of the donors, Trump won't go after all the donors because they're his donors. But if Bannon is legitimate and there's a real right-wing faction fighting against the donor class, that is an excellent turn of events.
All right, we got to take another break. When we come back, some foreign policy news for you, including what North Korea has been up to.
I just shot a clip. It's time sensitive and it needs to be edited. Did anybody call for it?
Ready? missiles at a factory just outside its capital, and that's according to reporting by the Washington Post. North Korea is also working on one and possibly two liquid-fueled ICBMs at its Sanumdong facility on the outskirts of Pyongyang. So this is now additional evidence indicating that they are continuing on with their programs, and we haven't really heard much from Trump on this, but we have heard a little bit from the fine people at Fox. You know, the same people that were applauding Trump and saying all these great things about him after the summit. Remember, right after the summit, Trump said, quote, "Just landed," this is on Twitter, "a long trip, but everybody can now feel much safer than the day I took office. There is no longer a nuclear threat from North Korea. Meeting with Kim Jong-un was an interesting and very positive experience." Okay.
Okay, I gotta say, look, we said it at the time, but now that we know that they're developing missiles, it takes on even more urgency. Only a very stupid person would come out of the first talks where you have nothing concrete in writing, and no agreements, and no factories taken down, no missile sites taken down, and say there is no longer a nuclear threat from North Korea. Because then you just took away all incentives for them to continue in that process, because you already declared the whole thing over. I mean, if you're on the other side of that negotiation, you got to be thinking, how did we get this lucky? This schmuck says, and now it's his ass on the line, his political ass on the line, and so he has to back us up if we continue to make nukes, because he already said that it was already done.
Right.
So it is such a terrible negotiation strategy. Part of the deal? Are you kidding me?
There's no strategy.
Yes,
Anyway.
so dumb.
So this is so bad that even Fox News had to admit it. Take a look.
And North Korea could be working to build new missiles, despite its pledge to denuclearize. The Washington Post reports U.S. spy agencies are seeing signs that the rogue regime is working on up to 2 missiles capable of hitting the United States. This satellite photo reportedly shows production at a missile facility. Not great. Steve, now do you wonder who is the spy agency who's talking to the Washington Post?
So that was Ducey. I love how Ducey's only takeaway from that was, oh, I wonder why the intelligence community is talking to Washington Post. Really? That's your commentary on this story? Amazing.
Yeah. So, for all the, I don't know if they're bots or whatever they are, because I tweeted about this earlier today, right? At Cenk, or good luck spelling it. And of course, people pour in. They're like, "Oh, so you just want war with North Korea?" All right. So for the billionth time, of course we don't want war. In fact, we supported Donald Trump going to talk to Kim Jong-un without preconditions more than any other show. You know, where the mainstream is like, "Well, I don't know. He's celebrating a dictator." We're like, "Screw it. Go talk to him. Who cares? I don't want preconditions. I want dialogue which leads to peace." That doesn't mean that I have to agree that he had a great result.
Right.
I wish he had a great result. I was rooting for a great result because I don't want war. North Korea is deeply unstable. The very, very last thing I want is a war with North Korea. But you can't come out of the negotiations and say, I did it, yeah, when you didn't do a goddamn thing. That makes war more likely, not less likely, because now Fox News is even embarrassing you. So now, God knows what the orange buffoon is going to do in retaliation. No, that's why you should be careful and actually use diplomats who are smart, unlike your dumbass.
All right, moving on to other news. Donald Trump indicated that he would be in favor of having talks with Iran with no conditions set ahead of time. Well, Fox and Friends seems to be very supportive of this, even though they were not supportive of Obama when he had said the same thing back in 2008. Now, let's hear from Fox and what they think about having a conversation with Iran.
Well, I believe in meeting. I would certainly meet with Iran if they wanted to meet. I don't know that they're ready yet. They're having a hard time right now.
He said that Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran were the main threats to U.S. security. Those 4 nations. So let's think. All right, Russia, he's met with Putin. China, he's met with Xi. North Korea, he's met with Kim Jong-un. And now the last one is Iran. What's he going to do with that? Keep in mind, there were some fiery tweets last week, just as there were last year,
with Little Rocket Man.
Yes, I mean, the big difference between those four countries is Iran is a regime run by radical Islamists. I think he's been successful meeting with people. You got to go in clear-eyed with someone like the folks in Iran. They are visceral and cultural enemies. They hate Israel. They want to wipe it off the map. It's a whole other league, are the Iranians.
You'd have to go in tough. You'd have to go in tough. But if you want change, sitting down with them might be the way to do it.
How have Trump's talks with other adversaries gone well, right? So, he met with Russia. Did that go well? Did you think that went well? Really? Oh, we talked to Kim Jong-un. Did that go well? I mean, there's now more evidence indicating that they've continued on with their nuclear weapons development. Like, what went well? Can you give me an example of how those talks went well?
Yeah, so before we go on to their hypocrisy, I got to make a couple of notes on that clip, too. But you got to go in tough. Really? Like you did with Putin? Come on. Even you don't think that, right? And Pete Hexen with... But Iran is different. Iran is different. Why is it different? He said they are visceral and cultural enemies. What does that mean, cultural enemy? What does that mean? How is anyone a cultural enemy? What is the definition of a cultural enemy? And he said, unlike the others, they're radical Islamists. But wait a minute, the North Koreans are the most radical people on the planet. So what are you saying? I know what you're saying. You're not worried about the radical. You're saying Islam, cultural enemy. Now remember, we hate Muslims, so we have to treat them differently. Even though North Korea is running concentration camps. Iran, the mullahs running Iran is a disaster. I don't want them to run Iran. I want Iran to be a free country, okay? But is Iran in better shape than North Korea? It's not even close. Iran is in way better shape than North Korea. North Korea is a terror state. I mean, they live in a state of terror. They also support terrorism across the world. So the only reason you would think that Iran is worse than North Korea is if you're a bigot, like Pete Hexen, and say that they are a cultural enemy. No, flat out bigot. If he said it about Jews, he'd be run out of town, and he should be. He says it about Muslims, everybody moves on like, oh, it's no big deal. Yeah, of course. Well, of course we hate Muslims. It's just, but they're different. They're different. Really, Pete, how are they different?
So, as you can tell, they're in favor of Trump having talks with Iran. And by the way, just to clarify, I would also be supportive of Trump having a dialogue with Iran rather than, going to war with them or, basically making the situation worse than it already is. Well, Fox just historically has not been in favor of American leaders, American politicians having open dialogue with the Iranians. So I'll give you an example. This is video showing their take on it since the 1980s.
Mullahs, he'll talk to the mullahs of Iran, the new president of Iran, but if you want to jump in, go ahead.
No, not really. When you hear the president, when you hear Ms. Pelosi talking, is she talking about the Iranians? Is she talking about the Syrians? Is she talking about Mr. Putin? No, they're talking about the Republican. The president says he doesn't need to talk to anybody. He'll talk to Iran and Syria and Vladimir Putin. The president says, I'm going to negotiate with a murderous anti-Semite group in Iran on a nuclear policy that they've waged throughout his entire presidency. They're on the brink of having a nuclear weapon in Iran, and says, well, he has sent out some nice Rosh Hashanah tweets. After a history of anti-Semitism, the president's posture has been not even to talk to you guys. He has time for the mullahs, though, in Iran. And now this
You did the math right, Sean. You did the math right.
Well, their message is clear. The president and his fellow Democrats will not meet with Republicans to discuss and negotiate over the debt limit. But the president may take time to meet with Iran's president, which is a country, of course, we haven't had official relations with since the 80s. No. But I don't know how to talk to the right wing anymore because they don't use logic and they don't care about facts. So how do you convince them? You just saw the two videos. They're obvious hypocrites. Gigantic, glaring hypocrites. When Obama or Democrats say, let's talk to Iran, they say, oh yeah, it's time for the mullahs. Would you talk to them? No. When Trump says, a genius, you got to talk to the people, your enemies. I mean, he's talking to all of our enemies. So that's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. You got to go talk to the mullahs.
Yeah.
Can you get any more hypocritical than that? On the other hand, we have been consistent all throughout. So should Trump
should Obama have talked to the mullahs? Yes, because you don't negotiate with your friends, you negotiate with your enemies. When Dick Cheney said that he wouldn't even talk to the Iranians about a peace deal, I went ballistic. What a monstrous, stupid thing to do, because it's purposely meant to lead to more war, right? Obama came in and said, yes, I will talk to the Iranians. Great. When Trump says he's going to talk to the Iranians, great. That's what we want. We want dialogue. We want peace, not war. The more you talk, the more you do diplomacy. Normally, war is less likely. I mean, Trump is a serial bungler. I mean, what he did in North Korea and Russia has not been great, but I would still vote for dialogue over conflict.
Yeah, look, I agree with you on that. I would vote for dialogue over conflict any day, even if it's Trump engaging in that dialogue. But I also want to add that giant caveat, because that caveat is important. Look, it's incredible how Fox can take the exact same issue and use it to their political advantage, regardless of who the politician is, right? We hate Obama, so if Obama wants to engage in these talks, we're going to rail against him. We love Trump, so if Trump wants to engage in these talks, we're going to support him and tell everyone that they should be in favor of that, right? But the thing is, at least Obama wasn't stupid, right? So Obama is not, whether you agree with his policies or not, and I hear you, he was flawed just like any other human. You have to at least acknowledge that he wasn't an idiot and he wasn't easily manipulated by other world leaders. Someone like Trump is so easily manipulated, and if he's not being manipulated, he's incredibly thin-skinned and offended immediately at something nonsensical. So, yes, we should have diplomatic talks, but I do, I am skeptical of what will come out of those talks, considering the person who would engage in them.
So, look, I hear you, Anna, and I'm not going to change my position on it. I think it's a net positive for him to go talk. But the things I'm concerned about is when he goes to talk to North Korea, there are other forces within the U.S. government and within the Republican Party saying, we don't really want to go to war with North Korea. There's not any oil there. There's a great number of reasons why that's a mess. And we don't want that. And some of them just because some Republicans are not as stupid as Trump, and they realize that millions of people would die, and that's terrible, right? And there isn't much money to be made there. In fact, if you lose South Korea, you could start a tailspin for the world economy. So when you go to Russia, you don't have to worry about Trump. He's not going to war with Russia. Okay, that's not an issue. When you go to China, we have so much trade with China. Military is not an option at all. When Trump goes to Iran, almost all of his advisors will be like, go get him, show him how tough you are. Yeah, push him. Oh, you got to push the Ayatollah around and insult him and spit on him and do whatever you do, because Bolton wants to go to war. He's a national security advisor. A lot of the establishment wants to go to war. The neocons want to go to war. And so you're going to send a guy who doesn't know what he's doing, backed up by a lot of warmongers, into that kind of a situation. I hear you that it is precarious. But still a little better than not talking to them and just going straight to conflict, that seems to be their plan A right now.
Yeah, it's terrifying. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, what Trump thinks about collusion. Is it legal? Is it illegal? He is a hot mess.
He did it. It's so obvious. When we come back, it'll be even more obvious. And I'll tell you an amazing interactions I've had with people who still don't believe. All right, we'll be right back.
That's Jared Jackson.
That's Rick Strauss.
There you are.
How you doing?
You look great.
It's that time of the day.
How the Patriots, who lost, could have won the Super Bowl. I've never felt more vibrant and alive than I do right now. The question here is, what is the most sport?
I say basketball.
I said rugby.
Boxing.
They live life on the edge.
The NBA All-Star Game took place yesterday at Staples Center. The Golden State Warriors are A-OK at basketball.
They were told to say those things to cover something else.
It's the money, the cars, the clothes, and that's what basketball brags about. That's what football brags about. That's what rap brags about.
It's not that we want to be treated differently, we want to be treated the same.
LeBron heard us talking about him, and he's like, yes, I love you. We will have much more fun, much more interactive content as we are already doing right now.
You guys operate almost as similar as the church.
What the hell? Oh, yeah, but he's not a conspiracy. He's not a little Ray.
To me, Jake would be like the pastor.
Oh,
We didn't invent affection and love. That's not like a societal thing that just like was taught.
I have a lot of things that have about 25 seconds of commentary. That's the way I listen. I can see why the church doesn't speak up. You like the network.com, but you know what makes the show run, and you get the whole show, and you get the post. You know that. Come right back. Go. Love the Young Turks, the Friday show. It's going to be awesome. We're going to help us over here. Drop it. We became the first ever daily online web television show. No, the Constitution is the very core of America. The fact that we don't spy on American citizens, that we get a warrant, that we go to a judge, that we have a procedure, that we have due process, that is America. On top of it, they go, why don't they just stay at their own schools? You gotta realize something. These schools suck. They want people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. You ain't got no straps, you ain't got no boots. He lit these fires in trash bins all around town out of frustration. 99's most viewed channel today on YouTube. The Shorties Award! Best web host. Voice Award winner, News and Information Channel, The Young Turks. Oh, another web. The Young Turks! Can I curse? Yeah! Those of you watching on live stream, yes, we have adopted a pet iguana that showed up at our door. Haunted version in the dark with our silhouettes. It's opening up by him. Now let's get the best line of the debate. It was definitely the one against Rollins. I never want to see another man's foot ever.
I'm gonna build a wall inside of you. I'm gonna put an anchor in you. I'm gonna space.
I told you. No.
You talk about it when it becomes a problem. Our lack of gun control is a problem.
The question is, how do we make sure that we blame the person who is dead? What kind of democracy is that?
We should never forget that the most powerful people in the world exploited the greatest tragedy in American history to go to war in a country that had a lot of oil.
Rolling thunder. That's what this show is.
My name is Alexandra Kablonsky, but I go by Alex. I don't know why I just said Alexandra. I got stuck with one of the hosts. I shouldn't say stuck. I work for one of the hosts for The Breakdown, which is Hakan Hiker. Besides that, though, I like to help out on Nerd Alert, and I also work on a main show. My favorite thing about TYT, the family unit aspect. I mean, I genuinely really like working here. Can I curse at all? No. Okay.
All right, back on the Young Turks. I got to read these two excellent tweets. Eclectic Miscellaneous says, wait, Jack mentioned a mission for the TYT Army, and he didn't attempt and fail at doing the Mission Impossible theme? And then, dun 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 dun. That's the wrong one, right?
No, wait.
That's the wrong one.
Okay, let's just stop.
Okay, all right. Now I'm going on to that Spanish lady. She writes, so does Donald Trump intend on meeting with everyone and anyone with no preconditions except for Robert Mueller? Oh, I mean, reverse the Fox News clip. So I guess he's got time for the mullahs and for dictators, but he doesn't have time for a special counsel, and our own FBI. All right. Fred Curry writes, regarding Medicare for All, most don't know the authors do not write the headlines. The business-minded, inaccurate headline makers do not mean well if the authors of the articles do. That's an interesting point. It's true that the headlines are almost always written by someone else. Brandon Bird says, so sad what they're doing to Brent. That's Brent Welder. We need more progressives in Congress. Cenk Anna, you guys inspire me to run for Texas's 35th next election cycle with a real progressive platform. That's excellent. Thank you, Brandon. That's great to hear that. I'm Lawrence, writes in on YouTube Super Chat. I suspect if Trump opposes the Koch brothers too much, his positive and supportive no matter what press coverage is going to dry up. Donations aren't all that they do. That would be an interesting dynamic at Fox News of all places, right? And then finally, Stephen Luke writes in, sent $5 earlier, but TYT Super Chat is too strong today. And he explains $600 for an ambulance sounds crazy to Canadians like me. I got mad that I got a bill for $45 after I needed an ambulance a few months ago.
That's like our copay, man.
I know, it's like nothing here. And he ends with saying, keep getting the word out, TYT. We're trying. Look, whenever you see a TYT stream, share it. What you see a video that you like, whether it's for Medicare for All or any of the other videos that we've done, and you got a dad who was brainwashed by Fox News Channel, send him the clip. Okay, tag your dad. Okay, hashtag your dad or whatever. Send it to your parents, to your uncles, to whoever you got, and then most of all, join up so that we can get the message out. Okay, tyt.com/join. Become a member of the Young Turks so we can get stronger. We really do need you guys. Absolutely. All right, what's next, Anna?
All right. Earlier, Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump's lawyer, had a strange and curious line of attack against the special counsel's investigation into Russian collusion. He claimed that collusion is not a crime. Not a crime. Which seems like an admission of guilt here, right? Because why would you use that talking point unless the person that you're defending has actually colluded? Well, Trump has actually taken on that line of attack himself. Let me share those examples with you. He says collusion is not a crime, but that doesn't matter because there was no collusion except by crooked Hillary and the Democrats. Okay. He also said, why didn't the 13 angry Democrats, by the way, he's referring to the special counsel when he says that, they're all lifelong Republicans, investigate the campaign of crooked Hillary Clinton, many crimes, much collusion with Russia? Why didn't the FBI take the server from the DNC rigged investigation? Okay. So there is no legal statute that indicates that collusion is a crime, but everything tied to collusion is a crime, right? And so he could, if he's proven guilty of collusion, he could be facing charges for conspiracy, fraud, computer hacking. Like, those are serious crimes.
So campaign election violations. So, for example, a foreign country cannot donate to your campaign. If they spent money to steal Hillary Clinton's emails or the DNC emails, and then they worked with Trump to give him that information, that is what we colloquially call collusion. In the law, that would be a campaign finance violation. It would also be aiding and abetting and possibly a conspiracy. So those are actual legal regulations and laws that were broken, if that's the case. Look, we're actually waiting for Robert Mueller to come back because we know Russia interfered in the election. Every intelligence agency says that, including all of Donald Trump's appointees. Every right-winger in the government says it. Every Republican says it. Every Democrat says it. And there's 32 indictments. I know for some people, for whatever reason, they think it's never enough. Nothing's ever evidence. And even if you convict them, they'll say, well, I don't know, man. They're still waiting on appeal. I can't talk to those people because there's nothing that would convince them. Okay, but yes, there's overwhelming evidence that the Russians did it. But we don't yet know if there seems to be a lot of evidence in public, but it has not been proven yet that Trump colluded with them, technically aided and abetted them, or was part of the conspiracy, or actually violated campaign finance laws. That is what Mueller is investigating. So using this thing of talking point about, well, collusion is not a real crime. Wow.
It's just such a dumb strategy.
Well, number one, it is a terrible legal strategy. But, Your Honor, I'm not calling it murder. I'm calling it killing someone. And killing someone is not technically a violation. But murder is. Homicide is. Well, you didn't use the word homicide. That's a terrible defense. Terrible. Okay?
Yeah.
And secondly, after you told us a million times that there was no collusion, for all of a sudden for you to say, but if there were, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's
so obvious you're guilty. It's so obvious. I mean, Brooke made a great point yesterday. It reeks of OJ. Now, if I did do it, here's how I did it. So, and guys, I mean, think about it in your own personal life. Like, so just pick a random TYT host, John Idaho, okay? Or here, let's pick Jimmy Dore, because some people think that we don't like each other, which is crazy talk, okay? So if someone said, hey, did you punch Jimmy Dore in the face, right? I wouldn't say, well, if I did, it's not technically a crime.
No,
I would say, of course I didn't punch Jimmy in the face, because I didn't. You see what I'm saying?
But, like, it's even worse. The way that Giuliani and Trump are handling it is worse, because in the context of punching Jimmy Dore in the face, your response would be, punching Jimmy Dore in the face isn't a crime, right? Like, 'cause that's how he's starting the conversation. I mean, it's a disaster. And by the way, look, for me, yes, the collusion part, if it's proven and there's conspiracy, there's, foreign money coming in and helping Trump's campaign, yes, that's a problem. But for me, the bigger issue is money laundering for the Russians, which I hope that Robert Mueller is looking into, because that is a bigger issue, if you ask me. Also, on top of that, just going back to the collusion thing very quickly, remember, Michael Cohen has turned on Trump, and Michael Cohen is telling everyone in the media, Homeboy knew about that meeting with the Russians.
No, you guys don't know why it's so bad, and it's obvious from Trump's panic and his changed talking point that, if there was collusion, it's not a big deal. Is because he knows Cohen's got the goods. So I'll give you one example, but it's all in the public record. There's dozens of examples, but in early 2017, New York Times had an article about how there was a secret proposal given to a Trump administration official early in his administration to lift the Russian sanctions. It was in a sealed envelope. Do you know who it went to? It went to Michael Flynn. Do you know who gave it to him? Michael Cohen and Felix Sater. Felix Sater is a well-known criminal that Donald Trump has worked with in the past. In fact, he had a card from the Trump organization. Now, Sater, it works with the Russians. Okay, so that is what it is. But Cohen and Flynn have already both flipped. So if that was a deal, and you lift the Russian sanctions for what we did during the election, the prosecutors already know it. And Trump knows that they know it because Cohen knows it. So that's why he's like, if I did collude, is that really a crime? Punching someone is not a crime. Assault is a crime, not punching. No, dude, it's just a different word. It's the same crime. Right? So he's in a cold sweat panic because he did it. He obviously did it. I don't know why people still at this late date can't say that. But most people, of course, do see that. Just there's a weird form of denial, mainly on the right, and a little bit on the left.
Yeah, definitely. All right, there is some other news that I really want to get to. A federal judge has ruled that the Trump administration must stop giving psychotropic drugs to migrant children who are in detention. Yes, that is going on. In fact, one of these detention centers has been ordered to shut down as a result. So the lawyer here, the U.S. District Judge here is Judge Dolly Gee, and she had previously ruled in favor of these migrant families and this whole zero tolerance policy. She wanted to get the families back together. But here's what she found and what she has ruled on in this latest update. So this Texas holding center was giving psychotropic drugs to minors both in the morning and at night without parental consent. That is a huge deal, right? So the judge ordered that the Trump administration must obtain consent or a court order before administering these medications, except in cases of dire emergencies. So they were sedating these kids, probably because it's a traumatic situation and maybe some of them were crying and having a difficult time. The judge additionally ordered that the Trump administration move most children out of one of the shelters. That's the one I was talking about earlier, the Shiloh Residential Treatment Center in Manville, Texas, where staff members have reportedly admitted that they have given children medication without consent. And also the shelter has been operating without board certification to treat children for nearly a decade.
Now, if you're wondering, why are they giving them drugs? Make their jobs easier.
Yeah.
You sedate the kids. I mean, they're kids. They'll act up. They'll play around. They'll do some horseplay. It's all hard to manage. You give them some drugs, easy to manage. That's the state of the country.
Yeah, the situation is really bad. And, there was a court order to reunite these families. And the Trump administration, is doing this victory lap as if they completed it and they did a great job. No, they did not do a good job. In fact, there are about 700 children, 700 of the 255 2,551 children who remain separated from their parents because their parents have been labeled ineligible for reunification or they've been deported. And let's keep it real. They didn't even keep track of, who the children belonged to. In some cases, they coerced parents to sign a form that would waive their ability to be reunified with their kids. I mean, it's disgusting. They don't care. They don't see them as humans. I don't know where, those pro-life people are, the ones who claim that they care so much about zygotes and fetuses. You care so much about children. Why don't you care about these children?
Yeah, they deported some of the parents, and then, forgot that they still have their kids. Now they say, well, we can't find the parents because they're already deported. We have no idea where they are in their home countries. I mean, look, part of this is bad intent to make their lives simpler, and part of it is Trump's grotesque incompetence. Just doesn't care. Other presidents would care to try to get it right. They would say, all right, if we're going to do this, let's be careful because we don't want it to, at a bare minimum, even if they don't have good intent, we don't want it to blow up in our face. We don't want to make a mess out of it. Trump says, who cares? Just separate them. Who cares? Who cares? We'll figure it out later. He doesn't even, because he never has a second thought. There's never, hey, what happens after that? Or step two. And now you've got these, different facilities giving these kids drugs to keep them quiet, just when you think it can't get worse. In the Trump world, it always gets worse.
We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
The American elections are designed to suppress the vote. They're not designed to get people fired up. They don't want people interested. We live in an oligarchy. None of this matters anyway. Your democracy has already been stolen from you. 90% of the people in America want some kind of gun regulation. We don't get it. 80% of people want a public option. We ain't never getting it. So legislation does not correlate to the citizenry anymore. We already live in this oligarchy. Capitalism is failing worldwide. Not one question about Brexit. Not one question about what to do when the banks fail here. Not one question, nothing. So it's the establishment with their head firmly in the sand, right? And there needs to be a revolution in America because all of our institutions are completely corrupt, especially the news media, right? So we've got 6 companies running all the things that we hear and see, and this is a perfect example of how they're part of the problem. Again, Trump's not the problem, he's a symptom of the problem. This is all part of the problem. This is why half the country doesn't vote. Hillary Clinton's still not trying to go get those people to vote. What she is trying to do is trying to get more right-wingers to vote for her. Still not trying to talk to the people who have tuned out of this election because they know there's no way to vote against more war. There's no way to vote against Goldman Sachs. There's no way to vote against more fracking or the oil industry. There's no way to vote against. Both parties are co-opted by the same people, and we need a party for the American people.
That's 300 million. That's a pretty good number. We were doing a press release on it, and I got all worked up. And I said, okay, well, that's the size of the U.S. population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world on the road to 6 billion. Although by the time we hit it, it'll probably be 7, maybe 8 billion. Not a big deal. A couple of days ago on the TYT network, we passed 1 billion views.
What the hell?
What the hell?
No, that's a big freaking deal.
2 billion views.
What now?
Sorry.
What did we do? 2 billion?
2 billion.
They said it couldn't be done, but it was done.
We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking, one day, we told them things like, are you nuts?
Yep, you're crossing 6 billion views. They said you couldn't do it. You can't change the media. Don't try. Well, here we are. We're changing the media. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Doc, I'm telling you, the talking, this therapy, none of this is working for me.
Grace, I want to try something new with you today.
Really?
Yeah, bear with me. What do you see?
Blood.
Okay.
More blood.
Okay, good. How about this one?
Buckets of blood on the floor.
Okay.
The Zodiac code. A disembodied head. John Wilkes Booth, John Wayne Gacy, a dead body, your dead body.
But instead I was like, I'm just trying to protect my engagement ring.
What we do after a week of soul-crushing news out there, we break out the good stuff, and that means good news. There's a woman in Spain who looks exactly like our president. Fun things to watch, look at rain, and then some good alcohol.
What's up, everyone? I'm Anna Kasparian, host of No Filter. If that sounds familiar to you, it's because it's the same talking point that we hear from Donald Trump every time the media criticizes him for being an idiot.
All right, back on the Young Turks. You know, I was just watching that commercial as we do the show live of Anna doing No Filter, which, by the way, is on our app. You should get that. Exciting announcement's coming up soon about that as well. Anyways, and you called Trump an idiot. And I realize, you know, I do that all the time. But that none of the other press does it.
Yeah, they pretend like they respect him.
Yeah, and I think that some of them even actually believe, no, well, he's not, no, I mean, he's a smart guy. He's just a little temperamental or etc. That's amazing. I mean, if they're not telling you that he's an idiot, then they're lying to you.
No, this next story, I mean, there's story after story that proves that he's not an intelligent person.
Okay. Anyways, all right. Let me tell you about Down Ticket. TYT and Down Ticket. I want to remind you that, of course, every year is an election year. This was a gigantic election year. And with Down Ticket, you could help even the playing field against big money and special interests by giving to your favorite candidate. So I love that about Down Ticket. And you just open up your browser on your mobile phone and go to downticket.com. So the big corporate guys are giving giant checks to Republicans and unfortunately sometimes Democrats. You can even score by tracking the people that you like at downticket.com. Okay, it's a really, really great service, so check it out. Okay, so a couple of quick comments from YouTube Super Chat. We appreciate you guys use that because that helps the show. Martin Madrigal says, lock up Trump in Sessions 2018, hashtag Black Lives Matter, hashtag no one is illegal, hashtag Mini Wakani. I'm losing track of the hashtags. I don't know what that means. I'll look it up. I looked up hashtag walk away and realized it's hilarious. It's like the right-wing trolls trying to convince people that people are walking away from the Democratic Party because they like Donald Trump so much. The number of people who do that is approximately -17. Anyway, it's probably actually negative millions. Greg Tranuth writes in, during the 2016 Republican primaries, Trump accused Rubio and Cruz of colluding to prevent him from winning the party nomination. I recall Trump defining collusion to be illegal.
Yeah, I know.
I know. And by the way, that was not illegal. That was actually two people conspiring to do something that was legal, which is politics.
Yeah.
Not illegal campaign finance violations, nothing like that. Of course, there's a topsy-turvy world, which leads to the last one. Brandon Chrisley writes in, of course, if Trump colludes, it's not a crime. If you or I do, it's illegal. No surprise. And look, Brandon, we'll talk more about this in the post-game, too. But one of the saddest things that's happened in this Trump era is not that Trump is crazy and constantly lies and constantly changes his position, which is super obvious to anyone except the mainstream media, which can't say it, right? It's that Republicans see it with their own eyes. And 88% of them go, that's my boy. Yep. No, I don't see the lie. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, he's always said that collusion is not a big deal. What? He never said that. Right? So, and they're just like, they just don't care about the facts. It's amazing. People should study it for how crowds react and what it says about human nature. And again, uneven playing field. If you had a Democrat who nonstop lied, he'd have no supporters. Everybody would be embarrassed to support a guy who was caught in one lie, right, let alone tens of thousands of lies. All right.
A federal judge has ruled to block the release of the downloadable blueprints that would allow people to essentially print guns on 3D printers. Now, this was set to take effect August 1st, meaning tomorrow people would be able to access those blueprints and then print guns on these 3D printers. But luckily, this federal judge in Seattle has issued a temporary restraining order to stop the release of the blueprints. And by the way, these guns would be untraceable and undetectable. They would be made of materials that wouldn't be detected through a metal detector, and untraceable because they wouldn't have serial codes on them or anything that would allow the authorities to trace them. Now, who is the person behind these blueprints? Who's trying to make this, widely available to Americans? A man by the name of Cody Wilson. Defense Distributed announced its plans to make 3D gun blueprints, including a single-shot pistol called the Liberator, an AR-15 lower receiver, and a complete Beretta M9 handgun available on August 1st. And by the way, they thought they were going to be able to do this because they reached a settlement with the federal government under the Trump administration. They tried to get this approved under the Obama administration, and of course it didn't get approved. Under Trump, it did get approved, but it seems like Trump didn't know anything about it. Now, keep in mind that the NRA is not necessarily in favor of this because it means weapons manufacturers, the very weapons manufacturers that fund their organizations, are going to lose money because then you can just go ahead and print a gun with a 3D printer, right? So here's what Trump had to say about this whole ordeal. Let's go to graphic 43. I am looking into 3D plastic guns being sold to the public. Already spoke to NRA, doesn't seem to make much sense. Your federal government reached this settlement with the guy who's trying to make these blueprints legal, widely available. You did that. You did that. I mean, it's incredible.
Okay, I got to give you two told yous. So, first told you is when this 3D gun printing story came out that the Trump government was going to allow it. I remember John and I discussed it on the show, and I said, the NRA is not going to like this. They're in favor of every lax gun regulation there is, and this is obviously lax gun regulation. Hey, everybody can have a gun, and their whole argument is Second Amendment. I got to protect myself against the government, right? We said NRA wouldn't like it. Turns out Trump there admits in the tweet he spoke to the NRA, and they don't like it. Why? Because they don't give a damn about your rights. They don't even care about the Second Amendment at all. All they care is, are we making money for weapons manufacturers? Because those are the people who fund us. If they're not making money, then screw your Second Amendment rights. No, I don't want you to get a 3D gun printed, okay? I want you to buy it from the guys who are bribing me.
Yep.
That is why a lot of times the NRA will actually have positions that were opposed to their members. 77% of their members want federal background checks. The NRA says no, then my gun manufacturers won't be able to sell enough guns. So I don't care what my members say. Do you think I actually give a damn about you? No, where's the money, Lebowski? That's all the NRA is. It's deeply corrupt. Now, the second told you is Trump, after the shooting in Florida, came out and said, well, I'm going to be tough on the NRA. These Republican governors and senators can't do it. But I'm going to be tough. I said, no, he's not. They're going to tell him, hey, idiot, they gave you $30 million during the election. They gave $50 million to the Republican Party overall. Bow your head. And Trump's not an actual alpha male. He's just stupid. He didn't think to check how much the NRA had given him. A couple of days later, he comes out and he's like, but we don't really need to do any of that stuff. Whatever that already says. I told you. And then look at this tweet. He says, I checked with the NRA, and they say they're not. You're so stupid.
It's amazing.
You're not supposed to say I checked with the NRA.
I know.
You're not supposed to say I checked with my donors, and they gave me my orders because I work for them. You're supposed to hide that and pretend that you came to a principled conclusion on this.
But by the way, besides which, it was your federal government who agreed to this settlement with Cody Wilson, the guy who wants to publish these blueprints, right? By the way, not only did they tell him, effective August 1st, you can publish those blueprints, they even paid his legal fees to the tune of $40,000. But he doesn't know about this? Oh, I looked into 3D guns for the first time ever after reaching this settlement? I mean,
do your goddamn homework, man. But nobody can tell him anything because he doesn't care to do the job. You think he knew about that case? Like, people assume that he knows the things that we know in the news. No, he doesn't. He's an empty-headed fool. You think he's asking about any federal rulings? You think he even knows what a federal ruling is?
Judges. Why do we need judges?
I mean, he literally said, why do we need judges? He said, what are they going to get him from a barber shop? Why would they get him from a barber shop? Why would they do that? Right? We have an
Isn't that where all the judges are?
moron as president, and obviously corrupt. So look, but the great irony of all this is that at the end of the day, we're always trying to be principled here. And so, as much as I despise the NRA and I despise Trump, and for completely different reasons, we're coming to the same conclusion. Do not do the 3D printed guns. I know they care about making money off of death, right?
Right.
That's their concern. My concern is less death. I mean, the liberator. Who are you going to liberate? You're going to liberate somebody from their lives, right? So the whole idea of this is, oh, well, you know, a Second Amendment, I'm in the woods and I printed my gun and the government's coming to get me. So, look, let's just be clear. In your plan, you would be murdering government officials.
Well, okay, Cody Wilson, again, the person behind all this, the person who wants to publish the blueprints online, has said some pretty terrible things, done some pretty terrible things. We have some videos to prove it. Let's go to the first video of Cody Wilson.
Joe Biden. This is no country for old men.
Okay.
No, look, if we had any sanity in the country, he'd immediately be arrested. You can't threaten to kill government officials like that. And they brag about it. And if he had said Mike Pence and then said, this is what I think of Mike Pence, and shot a gun, Secret Service should be at his door the very next day. Whether it's Pence, Trump, Biden, or Obama. You can't, these lunatics are going around like celebrating the idea of murdering people who work in the government. It's not a thing to be celebrated.
Also, I mean, with all the shootings that have happened in, crowded events, think about the fact that metal detectors wouldn't even, detect these guns. They would be made of materials that wouldn't be detected. So that's a terrifying situation to deal with.
There's only two sets of people who want guns without serial numbers. One is criminals, obviously, and the other is lunatics waiting in the woods to do some sort of armed revolution against government. People just assume oh, that's a normal thing. Oh, yeah, that's what the Second Amendment's for. That would mean that you would wait in the woods and murder what? Cops? They're the government officials with the guns, right? With the authority. You would murder FBI officials. You would murder people in the military. And then you want to talk about NFL players taking a knee during the anthem? You're planning to murder all these law enforcement officials while you're sitting in the woods with your gun that you printed out? Because that's what you're saying, right? I mean, I had to do a revolution against the government. It was tyranny, man. So that's why I murdered all those cops. By the way, it's not theoretical. There are crazed right-wing groups that do go around killing cops. There's dozens of these stories. The one that I remember that sticks out to me is the guy.
God, I'm sorry to interrupt you. This is breaking. He had already posted the online blueprints. So this is, according to CBS, it wasn't supposed to happen before midnight tonight, but it turns out the founder of the radical pro-gun group has already posted online blueprints for using 3D printers to make guns.
Luckily, it's pretty expensive now, and the guys in the woods can't afford to figure out a 3D printer. But some of them will have it. Some of them will have it, and now it's out in the world. And by the way, he had posted it before the government told him not to, and it had already been downloaded millions of times, and including by America's enemies. So,
what a patriotic guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So the story I was telling was that in Vegas, guy, right-winger, shoots 2 cops dead. He says he does it for freedom, and then he lays down a Gadsden flag over their dead bodies. The Gadsden flag is the one that says, "Don't tread on me." So these lunatics, they're already out there, and they're killing cops, and then you tell me about how blue lives matter? And now he already put it online.
Are there going to be consequences for it? That's what I want to know, right? I mean, even if the judge had not blocked it, which the judge in Seattle did block it, he still posted it before he was supposed to. So are there ever going to be consequences for anyone on the right?
And by the way, if you go to arrest the guy for violating an order, if he did, right? What's he going to do? Oh, here comes tyranny. God knows what he's going to do to the cops who's coming to arrest them. So we actually care about all human beings. Yes, including cops. We just want them to do a better job of not shooting unarmed people. But do we want them getting shot? Hell no, we don't. So protect the cops against these lunatics. And if you're going to go arrest right-wingers, go with a lot of force. Because this is not a situation where, oh, I saw a guy with a toy gun in a Walmart or a 12-year-old in a park. They do have weapons. Be careful.
All right, we got to take our last break. When we come back, Tucker Carlson speaking to us about indecency.
Yeah. We get animated about this. Yes, we're not the robots on TV. I actually care about the news. Guilty, I care. Senator Sanders, I'm going to do something unusual. I'm going to ask you a policy question. Say, how dare you? That's the problem. You're the problem. Don't ever attack the Republicans. Wait, no. No. These are all establishment guys. They love the system as it is. They're all enormously rich off the system that exists. For us, this system isn't working.
So what this campaign is about is trying to create an economy that works not only for the people on top, but works for all Americans.
So what's happening in the Democratic Party is what used to happen in the general election. We would have a person who represented workers and the people and the voters, and then the Republicans would represent business, corporations, and Wall Street. That's happening all inside the Democratic Party this time.
We're going to rock the boat. We're going to be counter-establishment. We're going to tell people the truth to the best of our abilities, and we're going to keep it real with them.
Corey, did you hear the news? Yeah. You know what we have to do, right? Let's do it.
And I wouldn't lose any votes, okay? Like we've got him.
Hey, bud, you still there? Yeah, I had the dream again. Yeah. I was in the rain this time. It was pretty cute.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Damage Report, another week of the news. I am John Idarola, and we've got a doozy of a show for you. My God, is DC up its own ass today. We have put someone into power in our country who's so crazy they have finally out-crazy North Korea.
The U.S. is the only country in the world that isn't part of the Paris Climate Accord.
Yesterday, Donald Trump did exactly what he told us. He pulled the U.S. out of the Iran nuclear accord.
People call the police on black people. People are fearful of black humans. There is no more to the story than racism.
I was going to say we've been dealing with the issue of lead poisoning in this country, but that would imply that we're really doing something. We have an issue of lead poisoning, and it continues. So 60 people are now dead. Some of them grandmothers, many of them children. The silence of politicians on both sides of the aisle. Just about only Bernie Sanders, maybe Tulsi Gabbard, and a few others have actually been critical of what happened there. And the rest are cowards hiding behind silence, refusing to admit what happened yesterday.
We have to be able to accept that we do things wrong in this country. You can fix and change things, make things even.
What's great about our country, and this is a great example of it, is everybody's pissed off. It is the Damage Report, and it's all about the threats facing us each day. When something's relevant, and it's hot, and it's in the news, you're not supposed to talk about it. We start talking about that.
Alright, everybody, good afternoon. Let's answer some questions truthfully for a change.
Why must you criticize in such personal terms?
Because he is a dick. Here's a list of what the president watches every day. Cartoons, Fox and Friends cartoons.
You said the president takes the issue of violence against women seriously.
Yes, but in my defense, that was a joke. To keep women safe, we've made a strict policy of hiring very few of them. If you want the truth, you probably can't handle the truth.
Alright, back Annie, on Turks, one quick comment for you guys because we got to go. Need to sponsor right sent on YouTube Super Chat. Some of these kids will be eligible for adoption, which is insane because they have parents. How is this not human trafficking? Good and uncomfortable question. Member shout-outs today are Zach James and Amy Erickson. Thank you guys for being members. You make the show possible. And you get all of our shows, including No Filter, as a podcast on our app. And We the People with Nina Turner, etc. All of our podcasting network, all of our video shows. So, tyt.com/join to become a member. All right, what's next, Anna?
Tucker Carlson has decided to slam the left for supporting someone who he has deemed indecent. So he is upset that the left has been supportive of Stormy Daniels, a woman that Donald Trump had sex with while he was married. Now, he doesn't think that Donald Trump is being indecent.
No.
He just thinks the left is wrong in supporting an indecent person. Let's hear more from Tucker Carlson.
Then there's Stormy Daniels. Even on the far left, hardcore pornography was not considered an ideal career for your daughter. And then Daniels and her creepy cable-friendly lawyer emerged, and now Daniels is touted on the left as some sort of civil rights hero. When Rudy Giuliani doubted her credibility, he was blasted for impugning the respectability of women who have sex with strangers on camera for pay. Well, for years, the left was even more adamant than the right in demanding free speech for Americans, and good for them. And then came Trump. Free speech allowed Donald Trump and his supporters to be heard, so now the left is against free speech.
Okay, I'll get back to the whole thing about the left being against free speech in just a minute because it infuriates me, and it's now turned into a cottage industry on the right where people are making a ton of money just lobbing like false accusations against the left in general and claiming that they're not in favor of free speech. But I did notice something there that I think some people might have missed. Tucker Carlson specifically referred to Stormy Daniels, adult, her porn industry, right? Her engagement in that, whatever, her career in that, as hardcore porn. How do you know it was hardcore porn? I didn't know. I don't know because I haven't looked into it. Has he looked into her hardcore porn?
All right, so let's start with indecency first and then go to free speech. First of all, let's just note the enormous world record-breaking hypocrisy here. So Stormy Daniels is indecent, and anyone on the left who supports her is then also indecent. But the guy who actually had sex with her is not indecent. While he was married to another woman, and this is at least the second or third adult film star that he has slept with, Raw Dog, by the way.
Ew.
Okay, that's just the facts. So, but that's not indecent. One of the adult film stars, no, to be fair, I think McDougal was an adult picture star, is that a thing? Playboy model, right?
Yes.
So he slept with her right after his wife had their son. Well, that seems like a very decent and moral thing to do. Donald Trump has cheated on all three of his wives and with porn stars. But that is not indecent. What is indecent is believing someone who does that for a living. Can you believe now? But at this point, they don't deny that he slept with Stormy Daniels. They did at the beginning. They lied. And then they're like, well, no, but what's the big deal, right? So, I mean, how does he live with himself? That's the thing. If I said something that hypocritical, it would bother me. I would stay up at night. I'd be like, I gotta correct that. That's not right. Right? Tucker Carlson knows it, doesn't give a damn.
Because his viewers don't give a damn. I think that hypocrisy is almost celebrated, on that side of the aisle, whereas, you're hypocritical on this show, you get called out, and you're right, it is embarrassing. You don't want to be a hypocrite, but with them, it's like, no, I'm going to use it to my political advantage, obviously.
You know what, Anna, you're right. I still keep thinking about it from our context, and I got to stop doing that. From their context, they probably think that the left is a bunch of suckers for having principles.
Yeah.
They're like, your principles impede your effort at smearing the other side. You're so stupid. Just chuck your principles away. Pretend that you have them when you don't. You obviously don't. Okay, now, second part of the indecency conversation. So these guys are now going around saying, porn, it's so indecent. Really? You're going to try that with your audience? Have at it, Hoss. Now, I guess Heath says that Shapiro wrote a whole book about porn, right? They've never done it, I suppose, right? They never watched because they are very, very moral, I suppose. I don't know. Maybe reporters should ask them because they're such warriors against porn. I mean, Nobody else is being hypocritical about it, but I don't know, maybe they're not hypocrites. Maybe they've never ever seen even a Playboy thing, because that is really immoral and disgusting, and only for the left, right? So I don't know, maybe somebody should ask. But secondly, really, you think this is a good play for your Fox News audience, and Ben, for your online audience? Do you have any idea how much porn they watch? So, okay, but look, some people online are like, no, how dare you bring that up? Because I brought it up on Twitter. They're like, well, of course not. We are moral people.
Oh my Look,
I'm at it all. Let's go against. You do an anti-porn crusade. See how that works out for you.
So I want to clarify a couple of other things. So first of all, Tucker Carlson claims that, the left is supportive of Stormy Daniels simply because she's an adult film actress. No, we're supportive of her because she has come out with allegations of getting paid off in hush money, that is a big deal. So, by the way, if Trump had an affair and there was nothing illegal about it, I don't care. I just don't care.
Yeah.
Right? So he's totally twisting the messaging here. The left is not, and by the way, the left did go after Giuliani because Giuliani went out of his way to discredit her while he was in Israel simply because she's a porn actress.
Yeah. So, but Tucker Carlson is a well-known liar and does propaganda for a living. So, Anna makes a great point here. Who on the left, find a quote of someone saying, I believe Stormy Daniels because she's a porn star. No, we believe her because she has a credible story that has all the evidence on her side. Nobody's saying, I don't care about the evidence. I only believe the porn stars. Who the hell would say that? I mean, the right wing would say that. They'd say, well, Trump has none of the evidence, but I believe him anyway because I believe in, alpha males and I'm a beta. So he cucked me. So what am I going to do?
Yeah.
I believe in Trump despite all evidence to the contrary. But that's projection, Tucker. I know that you're a beta who just can't wait to be subservient to someone like Donald Trump, evidence or no evidence. But the whole idea of smearing Stormy Daniels and saying you shouldn't believe her, despite the evidence, because she's an indecent porn star, is what we are objecting to.
Exactly. Also, quickly, look, the right wing claims they're in favor of free speech, freedom, liberty, right? Wouldn't you argue that either participating in pornography or viewing pornography should be included in individual liberties and freedoms, right? Like,
they don't care.
They don't care about any of that stuff.
They love big government. Tucker Carlson loves big government. Ben Shapiro is in love with big government. I want to judge all of your morality. I don't think you're moral enough. I'm going to judge you, and I'm going to say big government should get in between you and your doctor, make your medical decisions, judge your sex life, don't have that kind of sex, don't have this kind of sex, and if you're not having sex, don't watch porn. You think the incels that support Shapiro and Tucker Carlson aren't watching porn?
I hope they are watching
porn. They're incels.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you think they're doing? Okay, anyway, so they don't like freedom. They want to be able to put their morality on you. Now, finally, we get to freedom of speech. Are you kidding me? So when these guys, when there are actual legislation, actual First Amendment issues against free speech. So, for example, when state legislators say, hey, we should make laws prohibiting protests we don't like, pipelines, etc. We should make laws making it legal to run over and murder protesters. That was actually proposed in North Dakota. Yep. They go, yes, who cares about freedom of speech? Crush the protesters. If you protested Trump during the inauguration, they celebrated locking up people who were protesters.
Right.
That is a core First Amendment issue. The BDS movement about Israel, trying to get Israel to do the right thing through boycotts, etc. There's laws that say if you're in favor of that, the government should take action against you. They celebrate it. They're like, yes, shut down all speech against us. You guys are monumental liars. You don't care about freedom of speech at all. The only thing you care about is, oh my God, I was going to go on a college campus and get paid a lot of money by the Koch brothers and other people who secretly fund me. And now the liberals have complained, why am I not popular? So you don't care about free speech at all. All you care about is getting paid by your billionaire donors. That's all you care about, to do propaganda. You have no consistency. You hate freedom of speech. Just admit it. There's a lot of things Tucker Carlson should admit that he is not going to admit. I'm sure that every time you look at it, you think, oh, I'm being so decent. Good for you, Tucker. Okay.
Hardcore porn. He said it, not me. I didn't know it.
Okay, yeah, judge everyone in your audience. See how that turns out for you. You despicable prick. Okay, I think I've been clear on it.
Yep. Bye-bye.
We've got a big show ahead for you guys. I'm going to get right to it. Let's get to our first guest. Joining me now is Matt Morrison. He is Executive Director of Working America. Matt, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Jake. Really excited to be here.
No problem. Matt, talk to me about what Working America is. What is the organization? What do you guys do?
Back in 2003, the AFL-CIO recognized that there are too many working people outside the ranks of unions who didn't get our message and weren't sharing in the prosperity and growth that we were trying to build. Working America was the solution to that, where we go door to door talking to people that don't have a union on the job and preach strength in numbers. That is, if we can all join together and make sure that our collective economic, purchasing, labor, political strength is joined, then our voices can't be ignored. Since then, we've talked to 12 million voters all around the country, worked in hundreds of races, and we're excited about what that means for this year.
So, I'm fascinated by the idea and generally like it as a concept because I believe that actually reaching voters one-to-one is an incredibly effective way of making a political difference. And we saw that in the Ocasio-Cortez race where her volunteers reached enough people to swing the election despite the fact that she was outspent 10-1 by a corporate Democrat in that case. So, but I'm curious how long this has been going on, and I want to just dive into some of the details. So, when did this project begin?
So, Working America started about 15 years ago. We started in Ohio, Seattle, and really built out from there. Our goal was to go door to door and get people who were in these battleground communities but weren't hearing our message. We learned cycle after cycle that the more we talk to people and the more we talk to them on a year-round basis, we're not showing up every 2 years or 4 years to take the temperature and ask for a vote. We're there in January and February talking about what's happening with your local economy. Have you had job openings? Have you had factory shutdowns? And it's that type of relationship building. That's what you talk about when you mention face-to-face contact, really knowing your community. That's made us particularly credible, especially.
That's a shame. Okay, we lost him there. We'll obviously try to get him back on Skype. I'm surprised that's the first time that's happened. We've had now a lot of Skype guests, and sometimes we've had some poor connections, and other times it's been fantastic. I think that's the first time we dropped a call. Do we have to take a break, guys, to get him back on?
I'm here.
Oh, you are? Okay.
I am.
Boom, he's back already. Look at that. All right, yeah. So, Matt, if you don't mind, finish the thought.
Yeah, and sorry about the technical glitch there.
That's okay.
And so, it's really this type of face-to-face, relationship-based organizing that makes a difference. If you think about the ubiquity of digital content and television content, there are millions, if not billions of dollars or their equivalent that go to trying to communicate with voters, whether it's media coverage, whether it's social media feed, etc. If what we're trying to do is communicate through that channel, we're putting a pebble in the ocean. It's just too much volume, and we can't distinguish between it. If your listeners, if your viewers think about how many ads they got served today on their personal devices or on computers, and none of them actually made an impression, it's you really have to get past that point and get to where someone's going to recognize you and listen to you. So that's what we've been doing, and it works amazingly well.
So let's talk about that. So first of all, how do you find the people to talk to? Do they have to be non-union, and how do you know if they're working? So who do you know to talk to in any particular town that you're in?
Well, one of the things that we do is grow our teams from the communities that we're organizing in. So that gives you a head start from the beginning. People know their neighborhoods. They know which homes are occupied, what time folks are likely to get home, that type of thing. We also do things like work from the voter file because we're sometimes targeting people based on the likelihood of turning them out. We're trying to persuade them to support our candidate or that type of thing. But at the end of the
Yeah, so then let's talk about the results. So out of all those years of talking to these voters across the country who are working class Americans, what did you guys learn?
Well, the number one thing is that whether you're talking to someone in North Philadelphia or small town Lima, Ohio, what people have on their minds is what kind of education is my kid going to get? Is there going to be a job for them that's stable, that can allow them to raise a family and stay close to home? Can I afford health care? Can I afford my medications? It's that type of really practical thing. So there's a common bond that connects people. In a world where we often see the polarization, the conflict in our politics, most folks that we talk to, they're not politicized. They aren't thinking about this stuff. And so there's a lot of room to have conversation and move people. Our model, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Matt. But I got to keep it real. So we've done all these conversations, 12 million voters, but the Republicans are still winning. And for all the things that you just mentioned, their health care, the Republicans are shredding it. Their wages, the Republicans are helping corporations suppress their wages. So what's going on? Why are they still winning?
Well, when someone is presented with, we need to have an economic message, plain and simple. Economics is much broader and touches a lot more people than things that are closer to home that focus squarely on a progressive base. So, we tried a strategy of focusing solely on our base, and that didn't get us the results that we wanted. We've got to go broader, but something that touches on everyone's lives. The second challenge, quite frankly, is that we haven't sufficiently gone after the tactics or used the tactics that are going to make sure we break through. And let me give an example of what I mean by that. If you look at the broadcast outlets, and the vast majority of people experience political information through, say, local broadcast television. Sinclair Broadcast owns, 7 properties in central Ohio. They have all of these must-run segments. There's a clear bias in their coverage. When are folks ever going to hear a message about how someone is voting on repealing the Affordable Care Act and their access to health insurance that doesn't discriminate against them based on their gender or pre-existing condition? The message just doesn't get through. Now, we've spent a long time with the status quo Democratic Party practitioners, and that type of approach it's played out. We've got to do something different. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, people haven't had a real raise in 40 years. Productivity has more than doubled, yet wages are actually not only flat, they're starting to decrease. And whether you're someone who's an out-of-work factory worker in his 50s in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, or you're a young professional just trying to get your start in New York City and you're dealing with crushing student loan debt, you're seeing the same problem. That is, working people don't have real bargaining power at scale in this country. Now, there's things that are changing that. I point to the West Virginia teacher strike, for example. This is the type of solidarity that we're trying to instill with folks. But it's not frequent enough that people have that experience. And so what we need to do is make sure that people start to connect the dots and connect to each other. That's hard work, but we're up to the task. We collectively as a progressive community are.
Right. Matt, what's your sense of how angry people are? Do they get that their wages have been suppressed for 40 years, and are they pissed about it? Or they miss the story and they miss the forest for the trees, and they're relatively, I don't know if it's happy or calm.
Well, there's some variation for sure, but when you present people with the facts, they start to connect the dots and say, "Oh, I didn't get that." I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. We were out canvassing recently in Delaware Township. This is a small community just north of Columbus. And we come across a guy, his name is James. He was just getting home from work. He's 54 years old, white male, very blue collar. You can see he's caked in mud because he's working on a construction site. And he tells us right away, "Yep, I voted for Donald Trump, absolutely." But then you start to unpack what Donald Trump is proposing. And you say, did you know that Donald Trump's budget proposes cutting funding for workplace safety enforcement? You see him sit back and think, wait, I got injured on the job 20 years ago. cutting workplace safety enforcement is a real problem for them. You have to give people information they don't know, not tell them what they know is wrong. It's as simple as an education process. Once you do that, then you have James, and he's on board for challenging Trump and challenging his allies. But you got to connect the dots for people.
You know, Matt, we're almost out of time. I want to give people your website link, and then tell you my conclusion from this conversation. So, workingamerica.org is the website, everybody. Workingamerica.org. Okay. So, Matt, as you tell me this, it's obvious to me that you guys are doing great work, and that it does make a difference, because I know it. I've seen it in every political campaign that I've been involved in, and seen it. Talking to people and going door to door makes a giant difference. But it seems like, and I know that money in politics is the number one enemy, and that's what you guys have to deal with, because they use that to buy all the ads. But I think the main issue here that you're pointing out is that the media is just not on our side. So they never told that 54-year-old worker the reality, which is that they're going to cut things that protect them. They never tell the reality. They never, and whether it's Sinclair or even the so-called neutral media, they just always cover for the Republicans, because they feel it's maybe, I don't know, impolite, non-neutral to tell you what they're actually doing, which is cutting your health care, cutting your wages. And that is so much money in free media given to one side in this country. And that's what skews the playing field so much. I don't know, have I misread it, or do you think that's a huge, giant problem?
I think you're right on point. Although I'd say you need to widen the target range. Voters aren't just frustrated with Republicans, they're frustrated with Democrats. They're frustrated with the system that favors the elites and wealthy, and they don't see themselves getting served or getting ahead. And so what I would say, what I would leave you with is, you can absolutely change people if you go and talk to them face to face. When we were working in Pennsylvania's 18th congressional district for Connor Lamb's election, one woman told us, I'm a Donald Trump voter, but I'm one ER visit away from losing everything. And that type of really personal connection is why she changed her vote and said, I'm voting for Connor Lamb, because I need someone who's really going to stand with me. These folks, that is the Republicans in Congress that have tried to eliminate access to health care, they're going to regret that, because their voters feel that in a really personal way. But in order for their voters to hear it, we got to get to their faces, and we can't use the tactics that have failed us in the past.
Yeah, I totally hear you. And by the way, of course I agree. The corporate Democrats are a scourge upon the country. And they take it, and unfortunately they then get people to think that maybe progressives are for the elite, when that is the exact opposite of the truth. So we need uncorrupted candidates, and we need them right away to actually fight for the American people. Matt Morrison, Executive Director of Working America, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks so much. I appreciate what you do.
All right, thank you. All right, guys, we'll be right back.